So the first step before taking off your fan motor, you're going to want to get rid of this snow retention piece right here. The reason for that is you don't want your fan to wedge up against it when you knock that off of the motor. So to do that, you'll just need 9/16 socket and wrench. The wrench is only for the top bolt because that's not held on there with a retaining nut. These two are acting as a stud, so you don't need a wrench on them. So I'll start with those. Start on this bottom one. Get that nut off. This middle one now. Set those right there. And now I'll get my wrench. Reach around. And now should be able to just take this retaining piece right off. So now the second step to removing the fan motor is you're going to want to set the snowblower on the ground and take and remove this front bolt on the shock. The reason for that is we're going to roll the whole snowblower forward. So you just need your 9/16 socket and wrench. Take and get this bolt out of here. Get the nut off. Pull that bolt out. And then after you get that bolt out of there, you're going to want to make sure that you do this process on the other side. And you can just take, after you're done with both, take and roll them around to this back side so they're not getting in the way. So now after we got the nut off of the fan and the shock, the one bolt removed, now we're going to just roll it forward to get easier access of the fan motor back here. Doing that, I'm just going to have one hand up here. You can have a friend help you if you do. You should just be able to roll it forward, try and not have it slam. There. So after that's rolled forward, now we're going to move on to removing this back plate. So to get at the fan motor, we're going to want to remove this whole back plate. To do that, you're going to want to take and remove all 3 bolts on both sides. I'm going to take my impact here with an 1.1/8" socket on it to loosen these up and make sure that your impact's on the right setting. Get that bolt out. Get this one out of here. That one's out. So now to get access to this bottom bolt here, we're going to have to remove this hose bracket. So for that, you need a 9/16 socket and wrench. Get that on here. Make sure you don't lose the nut. Get that out of the way. Same thing on the bottom here. Now that hose, you can see, moves right out of the way for me. Make sure you keep these bolts, washers, nuts all together. Don't lose those. Set that off to the side. And then now we can get right to this bottom bolt. And I'm just going to be loosening this one up. So now that's loose. You can see there, I'll go a little more. So now after we're done with that, we're going to repeat the process on the other side. So now you take this last bolt out, I take my impact with the 1.1/8" socket, and this is going to want to slide down. I'm going to use my legs to brace it so it doesn't fall on my toes. Get that out. Set this plate down. And now repeat the process on the other side. Now I'm going to set this off to the side. So now, after we have the shock off and everything tipped down and the back plate out of the way, we have full access to the fan motor back here. So to start working on that, what you're gonna need is a few different wrenches. I got 1.25 inches and then an 11/16. 1.25 inches obviously for your bigger hoses. And I'm gonna start actually with the 11/16 up on the case drain hose here. So that, just crack that loose. Some oil's gonna start dripping. So that's where I'm gonna use some paper towels here just to catch that as that starts running down. A little late, but better late than never, as they say. Take and tuck those in there. And now this. I kind of let that start gurgling out. Grab a couple paper towels for my fingers so I can still hold on to wrenches. And I'm going to push that out of the way. Thread that off. Let that drain down on those paper towels. Now for the 1.25 inches, probably start on this side here. Loosen this one up. Same as the... We'll have a little oil squirting out a little bit, but it's nothing that a guy needs to worry about. It's completely normal. Okay, so now that's off. And then now, for the last hose, don't tighten it, but loosen it. I think I would know better at this point. Okay, now that's done. So now, after you have all those hoses off, I'm gonna take an impact with a 3/4 socket on it, and we're gonna take off 2 bolts on the motor, kitty corner from each other. So I'm gonna start with this top right one. I need a little bigger impact because of the extension. So I'll grab that. And obviously do the same thing I was just doing. So that should be out. You're gonna want to keep, there's a lock washer. It's on the bolt. Keep that with that. And now I'm gonna go, went from the top right, now I'm gonna do the bottom left bolt. Like I said, kitty corner. That's all loose. Pull that out, making sure my lock washer is still on there. Wipe down my hands quick. Not the cleanest process. Now, I should explain, we got some full thread bolts that we'd send with your motor. So once you have these in hand, you're gonna take and put those in those holes that you just took those last bolts out of. Start threading those. So now you have your long 3/4 inch bolts in there. What you're gonna wanna do is just walk them forward until they'll touch the back of the fan. So, right, yep, so right about there, felt it touch. That one, I must So not started very good. It's there, it should be started now. Take, should be, yeah, so get it right there, it touched. And now you're gonna wanna walk them back and forth, not obviously shove the one in all the way. So the reason for that is we don't want the fan to be twisting, harming the motor shaft. So you go one at a time, back and forth. Oh, right there, you'll hear the bang. That means your fan popped off. So now I'm gonna back those bolts all the way out. That one first. Get the bolts out of the way. And now I'm gonna I'd put these 2 bolts back in, take the other bolts out that are holding the fan on. And now your motor should be free. Get my bolts out of here with the lock washer on them. Set those paper towels down there now. So bolt with the lock washer, same thing up top. Grab that. And then now you pull this out. Once I get that out, so now when you have your fan motor off, say if this has gone bad for some reason or you're just replacing it, you're gonna take and you're gonna wanna get all your fittings off of here to replace onto your new motor. So you're gonna need 1 1/4 inch for this one, 1 1/4 inch for this one here, and then move that paper towel, a 9/16 for this 90 on the back side there. And you're gonna replace those onto your new motor. You're gonna wanna make sure that your key is still in the keyway in your motor before you go to install it. That's just this little metal piece right here. Mine's there. So now I'm gonna take and get this motor shoved back up in here. It's a little finagling that a guy has to do with these hoses, but it's not the end of the world. Now that motor will seat in there. And I'm gonna grab my bolt, make sure it still has lock washer on it, and just get those holes nice and lined up and start installing those bolts again. Grab my other 3 bolts now and just finish getting those all started. It's kind of a losing battle trying to keep your hands not oily, but I try my best. So now those are all started. Re-wipe down my hands, try and not get everything covered in oil. And now take my 3/4 socket on the impact again and snug those all up. That one's being a bugger again. There we go. You want to get them generally pretty tight, so that motor's not obviously rattling out. Once you get that all tightened up again, now you're just going to start putting the hoses back on. So I'm going to probably go reverse order of what I did before. Start with this hose big one on this side. These sometimes can be a little tricky to get started. Have a little patience and a guy can get it done. There we go. And these you'll probably want to get as tight as you can with your hands so you're not having to do a whole bunch of wrenching. Now I'll go with this one on this side. Having a little trouble because it's a little slippery, but I think we're getting it there. Try and wipe off my fingers in this fitting to get a little better purchase. You can even use the paper towels to help your grip out. Okay, that's on there. And the last one to do is going to be a little case drain hose. Take and tuck that under this one here. Okay, got those as tight as I can with my fingers. So now back to the wrenches we go. I'll start with the case drain hose with my 11/16. And this doesn't need to get very tight. You can over tighten these pretty easy. So you're just gonna get it good and snug. Just feel it out. Don't need to He-Man anything. And now I'll grab my 1¼ wrench again and do these bigger hoses. Making sure that we're going the right way. And these you can get pretty snug with, pretty tight, but doesn't need to be anything overly tight. Because again, you can jam these fittings up. And then the next time you have to take it off, it's not very fun because it won't swivel the way it should. Oop. And this block right here, generally have it about level with the motor, but it doesn't need to be by any means. That's just more of a hose routing aesthetic kind of deal. There, start getting pretty snug there. Ooh, right there. Make sure it's not going to move around on you, and should be ready to start buttoning everything back up. So now that we have the fan motor replaced in there, it's time to put the quick attach plate back on. To do that, it's a little easier if a guy has a second set of hands to start a bolt. So we just get this laid up there. Now I'll hold this with my knee. So now that we have the plate, we're going to want to make sure that this tab is pointing out and forward and at the top of the plate before we start it on there. Once you're making sure that that's good, I'm going to take and get this started in here. Help out John a little bit. So yeah, he's got that started. Now I should be good to go. Just make sure I grab my other bolts here. And that I take, I gotta lift it up a little bit. I just get all these threaded on. Once they're just a few threads in, then we're gonna be able to take our impact and snug all that up. And you are gonna wanna make sure that you re-level your plate to match what your machine height is. So you're gonna wanna refer to the plate leveling video. And here, I'm just gonna take my impact with the 1 1/8" socket again. Make sure it's in the tighten. Go around. Get these just all snugged up to start. And now I'm just gonna repeat the process on this side. Get those started. Now I can kind of send it home. And yeah, those are real tight on the other side. And then now I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And you'll know it's tight and ready to go if this plate is touching the snowblower body on both sides, should be. So now after we have the quick attach plate reinstalled, it's time to get your hoses put back in the hose holder. You'll need this plate that you took off earlier with the 2 nuts with the washers. Washers aren't critical. They're good to have on there to keep everything from getting scratched up. I take the one out so I don't end up dropping it when I'm holding the other one. Here you just pull the hoses back in like that, get the bolt through that hole, hold it there, and now take your nut I should show, take that, get that started on the back side here. That's good. Now I'm gonna just take my other bolt, get that shoved through, and then you can just kind of pull that into place, try not to pinch your finger. Hold that, get the other nut on. Once you got those on there, now you'll just take your impact with a 9/16 and a wrench matching and get those tightened back up. Make sure your impact's on the right setting. That's snugged up. And that is all done. So now we have everything done on the back side after replacing the fan motor. I'm gonna tip this back up. It does help if you have a friend. You can also do it by yourself. It's not the hardest thing. Just make sure you're not hurting your back. I grab up on the chute here, down low here, and then just kind of squat it up. You're just gonna take and make sure you get this shock bolted back up. And just get that in the right spot. Get the bolt back in there. Start the nut on the back side. Now you'll take your socket and wrench, snug it back up. After you're done with that, make sure that you repeat the process on the other side. So now that we have the fan motor installed on the back side, we're going to want to make sure that our fan gets installed correctly. One thing, the biggest thing to note is going to be your key and keyway. Keyway you'll see is a slot right in the hub. So with that, you're going to want to take and you can kind of lift up on the fan a little bit. So you're going to want to look through the hub in your fan motor and you can see the key through there with your eyes. There's a key that's on the motor. You'll want to make sure that that is still on the shaft and that your keyway here and that key are lined up. So once you see the general spot where that is, you can kind of take and shimmy the fan on there and you'll know the key is in the keyway if it slides on real nice like that. And now you can confirm and see that that key is right in the keyway. And after that, you're going to want to take your nut for the fan, take some Loctite. We use 271, don't have to use that necessarily, just something to retain the nut down there. Put a couple drops on either side. Doesn't need to be a whole lot. And take and thread this back onto your fan motor. Put my cap back on my Loctite so that doesn't spill everywhere. And now, time for hearing protection again. Be hammering on this thing a little bit. So take and put your earplug in. Get your impact. It's an 1.5" socket. It's a pretty big socket. Get that on the nut. Get that snugged up. And then now, we're just gonna hammer on it a little bit. So now we got that hammered on. Should be able to feel just barely one thread. Don't want to make sure you're hammering on there too tight. And then this is a good check. Just take and feel with your hand. Make sure it's not rubbing on the back side. Make sure it's not rubbing on your fan housing. It shouldn't be. For some odd reason it is. You can take a little grinder and grind on it just a tiny bit, but that should be no problem for you. Now that spins. We're done with that. So now that we got that fan back on there, the nut on there with the Loctite, we're gonna take this snow retention piece and put this, there's 2 bolts right here. These 2 act as a stud. They have a nut on there holding it tight, so you don't need to get a wrench. This one up top is loose, so you'll need a wrench to hold it on the back side. That's just right behind this plate right here. So now you can make sure obviously it'll only fit one way, but that this notch is up. Get that back on those studs and get that bolt back through there. And then for that top one, like I say, you'll just need a wrench to hold it. I'm gonna grab my other impact, get the extension off there because I don't need that. Now take that on the nut there. Wrench on the back side. Not too tight, that's only a 3/8 bolt, so don't need to go crazy on it. I'm gonna grab my 2 other nuts here and get those threaded onto these studs. And then snug those up with the impact. That one's good. And now this one, you can see it's in the way there. Don't worry about that. Just rotate your auger a little bit and you can reach around from the bottom side here, once that's out of the way, to get at that nut. Now that's on there. Now you're ready to start blowing snow again.